Hey everybody, this is Ross Johnson from the Sound of Tomorrow show. You're listening to WAYO 104.3 FM, Rochester. We're got a show on this channel. It's coming up next. We're going to be talking about, we got some hot picks. We're going to be talking about that Lizzo and some other related gay stuff. And Heather's got some story about her neighborhood, which I'm sure will be scintillating. And a little segment I like to call Guess Who Died Now? That's up next. But first.
Whoa, Ross! You look more worked up than usual. Are your hands shaking?
Heather, I am furious. Furious. My hands are shaking with righteous indignation.
Oh no, what happened?
Lizzo.
Lizzo?
Yes, Lizzo.
Okay, I mean, we can keep saying the name of the famous pop star Lizzo for as long as you want, but just exclaiming Lizzo at me isn't helping me understand why you're so mad.
Didn't you hear?
No, obviously not. I've been in a news blackout for a bit, and stop looking at me like that. I'm just really busy.
Okay. Too busy, I guess, to have heard the news that the Library of Congress invited Lizzo, that's right, to play President James Madison's crystal flute.
President James Madison's crystal flute?
Yes, God, the famous crystal flute, once owned by President James Madison, who was definitely a president that everyone remembers, that everyone in the U.S. has totally known about forever and super cares about because, like, we learned about it in schools all the time, even public schools like you and I went through, and we had all the songs and cheers for President James Madison's famous, beloved crystal flute that we did, as you well know, all the time.
Okay, yeah. We did not hear a single word about any crystal flute when I was growing up. And, Madison, I'm so bad at this. He was like the 13th president. I've got no clue.
Yeah, me neither. But back to the flute, Heather.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Lizzo is a flautist, right? So, she can play a flute.
Okay, but Heather, perhaps you didn't know that she was not, let me give you some context, she was not wearing pants at the time.
Yeah, and you're not wearing pants.
That's different.
I'll be honest, I don't care about any of this. It's neat that Lizzo got to play this antique thing and the public got to see it and whatever, but what's it got to do with anything?
Okay, so James Madison's crystal flute is just where it starts, Heather. What's next? Lizzo gets to play Millard Fillmore's beeswax zither.
Is that a thing?
Next, they'll give Lizzo Richard Nixon's fiberglass Irish bouzouki.
Oh, no.
After that, what? Lizzo plays Chester A. Arthur's Wicker Hurdy-Gurdy?
Ross.
And then, they'll let Lizzo, yes, Lizzo, play Warren G. Harding's Bakelite Reed contrabass.
Jeepers.
After Warren G. Harding's Bakelite Reed contrabass, Lizzo's gonna play Rutherford B. Hayes' Ostrich Skin Pandero.
You're not even upset, are you? You just made this list and now you're gonna torture me with it.
You're gonna finally see what all this means when Lizzo plays James K. Polk's Coral Calliope.
How many more of these do you have?
Let us not forget, Heather, the Pyrex Styrophone prized by President Barack Obama himself. Lizzo herself will wield the stylus, and then what? It's
a stylophone, so there'll be like some beep boop noises.
Yeah, precisely.
What?
Yes, exactly. Now you're getting it. Beep boop, Heather. Beep freaking boop. It's America.
That made me laugh so hard.
I'm glad you did that because I had a sketch idea and then it wasn't my week and I was almost like I'm gonna send Heather my sketch idea and see if she wants it. And it was but it could be a Halloween thing maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe I won't tell you.
Okay.
Anyway. Hey everybody, I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host.
And I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power. You're listening to The Sound of Tomorrow on WAYO-LP Rochester.
Sorry, I had to burp real bad just now. So
Which is the
was
new
not on that
slogan
ball.
for the
Right.
WAYO 2023 fundraiser
Right.
coming up very, very soon. Stay tuned to this very station for more details. To donate, go over to donate.wayofm.org, where you will see the slogan is, "Sorry, I had to burp real bad."
Yep. That's what everybody. That's the famous. When you listen, everybody who listens to Wayo knows that famous catchphrase.
Yeah, they certainly
It's so
do.
popular.
So
Yeah.
when you're making your donations, please make them in the name of the sound of tomorrow. Again, that's donate.wayofm.org. I think that's still the link. It's
Sorry,
changed
I
a
had
couple times, but I think that still works.
burp real bad.
Yeah.
Heather, should we? You know what? Should we segue right from our? Oh, you have a story. You know what? No, actually, we're gonna do it my way for once.
We'll
Let's
do it your
let's
way.
talk. Let's talk about Lizzo. Let's
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 talk
let's
about Lizzo.
carry right over from the from our intro. So I assume everyone's heard about the deeply traumatic incident in which the Library of Congress gave Lizzo James Madison's crystal flute um, to play, which
Yeah.
is totally a thing that everybody knows about, and James Madison's totally a president that everyone really is fond of and cares about a
Well,
lot.
I mean, not to peel back the behind the scenes on skit writing too much, but honestly, like I did you know that James Madison had a crystal flute until until Lizzo played it?
No, literally no one knew. I mean,
No one knew, right?
the the lady from the Library of Congress who handed Lizzo the flute. She's the literally the only one that knows that James Madison had a crystal flute. I mean, it's like saying like, you know, James Madison's vinyl copy of Dark Side of the Moon. It's like, okay,
I
I
mean,
will accept that that may be something he owned. If you
yeah,
tell me that, I'll believe you. But it's not something I would ever. It's not like he used it to fend off the British during the War of 1812 with the crystal flute. So everybody knows the crystal flute story.
yeah. So, okay, good. But I'm glad because I was as certain as I could be that no one knew a thing about this crystal flute, except again, maybe like the person who works at the Library of Congress. And maybe apparently Lizzo has also toured and played flutes from very rare flute collections,
Okay.
which no one got upset about until it was James Madison's crystal flute. But that's a thing she does as like a classically trained flautist. She somehow has access to these historical instruments and is sometimes asked to play them.
Yeah. So skipping past the outrage for a second, in a healthier country full of reasonable people, like what a cool thing. I mean, so the context here is this is not a this is not like Abraham
Should we
Lincoln's.
should we back up, Ross? There are a lot of people in the US, if you don't know this, folks out there, people in the US are really steamed that Lizzo played James Madison's crystal flute. And we can only think of certain reasons why they would be so steamed, right? Because they love this flute and it's fragile. They've cared about it their entire lives.
Well, and I mean, the context here too is this is not Abraham Lincoln's rib cage that she played like like
Not yet.
not yet. Lizzo's coming for it though. This is the Library of and I don't know. I at one point I learned and then I got bored, but the I don't know if this has been played before, but the Library of Congress maintain, the idea is that these instruments, if they are sound and sturdy and playable, they ought not be kept in a vault at the back of the Library of Congress gathering dust for all time. They are musical instruments, and their value is in hearing them played and
Mhm.
hearing what they sound like. So the philosophy here is that the Library of Congress maintains a collection of instruments along these lines, and they maintain them in working playing order so that they can be played. And they do that with pianos and violins
Mhm.
and I guess this is sort of common more broadly in the people that are sort of in the music world. Like I guess this is if you're a musician at a certain level and you have a certain level of fame, people will be like, here's a very old Stradivarius, whatever to play.
That's exactly it. Because especially this, I don't know a lot about famous antique instruments, but I do know
Right.
the Stradivarius and how like some very, very famous violin, it's a violin
Sure.
player will be featured with this orchestra on this one Stradivarius on loan from this collection.
Yeah.
Like it's a
And,
thing.
and it, like, in a healthy country, the whole country is now talking about James Madison's crystal flute and the Library of Congress and Lizzo playing this thing both on stage and in the halls of the Library of Congress. In a healthy country that, cared about music education at all and wasn't just looking for things to be mad about. What a cool thing. Hey, everybody, let's learn about James Madison. Did you see what Lizzo did? And then, you're like, oh, okay, little mixed report on James Madison, but still
Absolutely.
we've dived into we've dived into some American history. Instead, it's this outrage, and some of the some of the quotes were can I read you one of my
Oh, I
favorite
hope
quotes?
you have some. I saw some today, but I don't have any pulled up.
So this is from someone named Pedro L. Gonzalez, who's I don't know who that is exactly, but it's a conservative commentator type person who seems to have a big following. Um, the thing that is obvious, but people don't want to say, is that this is about humiliating white people and desecrating American history and heritage. That's what you do when you're a conqueror. Humiliate the conquered.
So I played flute all through high school. I do have a flute. Are you telling me that I could take over my neighbors' houses if I just go and play some flute for them?
Um,
Because I'm assuming what he means is the action of playing a flute is obviously the action of an oppressor, right?
I think the idea here is that it's only an oppressor if it's a black lady. Let's be real.
Oh,
Someone
I
another
was I was playing.
I
I was
figured.
playing dumb. I was playing dumb.
Another comment is, and this gets right to the heart of it. So this is a Truth Social account called the Columbia Bugle. That's another sort of conservative commentator site. They described it as a humiliation ritual. They don't care about our history. They just want to mock and defile it. Which is like, who's they and who's our here? Because
Uh-huh.
I
They,
have
the
to,
Library of Congress? I
well,
don't think
and
that's what they meant.
no, I don't think that's what they meant. And like, Lizzo was born in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not sure why the Columbia Bugle and Matt Walsh and Pedro Gonzalez and all these other people and all these conservative Congress people who have had things to say about this. I'm not sure why. Well, I do know why. I'm playing dumb now, but I'm not sure why they think they get to claim American history
Yeah.
away from. I mean, like, there have been waves of immigration in this country, right? But sort of the main thrust of like European immigration, like thinking of like Polish people, Italian people, Irish people, an awful lot of the, and to some extent Chinese people as well. A lot of the backgrounds that people claim very proudly were people who came in like the late 1800s, early
Mm-hmm.
1900s. The transatlantic slave trade ended in 1808 because slavery was sort of self-sustaining at that point. I mean, I think for some people that was a conscientious, like, this is a way to get rid of slavery. For other people, it was, we don't need to import people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I'm sure someone's done research on this. I would guess that if you put an average black American next to an average white American and you were able to trace their family lineages, I bet you there's a very good chance. I bet you there's better than even odds that black person's family has been here longer than the white person's family.
Yeah.
That's not
Yep.
true of me, of course, because as we know, my family goes back to, quite far. But that's,
All right. Let me brag. So does mine on my dad's side.
to what? To where? You can't.
Um, I'm 13th generation
Okay, I need a date. I
US.
can't do that. I'm not.
I can't do the dates. I'd have to look. I don't even know if I have that. My dad has the genealogy stuff.
All
I
right.
could be in the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Oh, good. That'd be good.
Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my dad always tells me excitedly. I'm like, yeah, no.
I can't believe am. I feel like I'm surprised that that's still a thing. Um, although I probably shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be surprised, and you can bet some of these people from the Daughters of the American Revolution were probably tweeting about Lizzo.
Yeah.
Because I saw a weird thing somewhat along those lines, calling for her to be deported. And then people were like, she's an American citizen. And the response was, I don't care what country she's from, she should be deported. Which I think the correct word would be exiled. But I'm not sure what it takes to get exiled from the US. Is that a thing?
That's not really a thing.
And I'm not sure we're ready to exile one of our biggest pop stars
Because our
because she was asked by the
elected
Library of Congress to
representative,
play an antique instrument.
right? I, and someone commented too, and I don't remember who said this, but it's a great point. Like, and what if she had refused? What if she had been like, James Madison was a slaveholder? I am not going to play his instrument. Then they'd be mad about that. So what is the scenario in which someone, it's one of those situations where what is the
Yeah,
scenario in which someone can win?
you're
Uh,
right. You're
there is,
absolutely right.
there is,
There was no winning. Play it or not, there was nope.
yeah.
And then I saw a lot of vitriol that was other levels of ism, specifically sizeism.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw a lot of commentary about when she played at the Library of Congress. I saw the outfit; it was just a cute, like pants and a top.
Yeah.
But when she played on stage, she played in what is typical women's concert gear, which was like a cute little bodysuit and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were very upset to see a woman of size wearing a bodysuit like that.
Yeah.
She looked great; she's gorgeous. But I saw a lot of things about that too, like how dare she dance? How dare she not have proper pants on? It's like because she's a very famous star and she wears a costume to perform, I think is the answer to that. And if she just went up on stage in jeans and a t-shirt, I'm sure she'd look fantastic, but that's not really what she's known for. So it's like people were acting like they're all experts on Lizzo or something, but then obviously they aren't because they're like, well, I can't believe she wasn't wearing pants. It's like, yeah, Lizzo really doesn't wear a lot of pants from what I've seen. And I watched that whole TV show about her backup dancers.
Yeah. And it's all
Well, I even saw someone say flat out, like, she's no Beyonce, meaning Beyonce is thinner.
right.
So Beyonce doesn't have to wear pants, but a woman of size should be wearing pants.
Well, and again, you know, in a healthy country, what a fun thing. I mean, what a cool, like, to have someone who's, from what I understand, she's a little bit of a history nerd herself.
Hmm.
A classically trained musician who's also who's also a giant pop star.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I know I have to admit for me, like as you mentioned, if we look back at Madison's tenure as president, there is like, well, oh. But to hear an antique instrument like that played, I've never heard a crystal flute in my life.
Right.
And now I watched some of the clips and I'm like, it's what a darn crystal flute sounds like.
Well, and to take an opportunity to, if you want to talk about the good and bad of James, I get a little, and this is where with some of the Queen Elizabeth stuff, where it's like, where I was talking about the idea that like, oh, we can put all this stuff on, we can put all this stuff on Queen Elizabeth, we can bury her, and then we never have to think about it. This is our history. James Madison is our history,
Hmm.
and we are, to whatever extent we've benefited, we've probably benefited more as white people from that than
Hmm.
people of color have benefited, but it is our history, and it is, it's worth, I, I don't think you can get away from it by going, "Ooh, that's bad. Let's not even think about it."
You
It's
can't.
there. It is. It exists. And being aware of it and discussing it again for, you know, with judgment, but also with some objectivity. It's not the worst thing. Here was an opportunity to do that, but instead it became an opportunity to talk about, how we don't like this fat black woman.
Hmm. Yeah. And it definitely, it wasn't as, in a in a way, if it weren't so indicative of a very sick society and sick and disgusting, abhorrent views people have, it almost like if you back way out from it, it's so trivial and so silly.
Yeah.
Like people frothing at the mouth because a pop star played an antique because the Library of Congress was like, hey, you're famous, want to play this thing.
Yeah.
Like who gets so frothy about it? It's like in my mind, it's like when a trans woman did pretty well on a women's sports team and suddenly everybody was just an expert in women's sports. They knew all about it.
Yeah. The stuff, and well, and the fact that, I don't know if, the fact that we're even talking about it, I don't know if that contributes or is good or bad, or I don't know. But you're right. I mean, the stuff that, like, yeah, if you stare at it, you have to really stare at it and think about it and worry about it to get you really have to work yourself up over things that don't impact you at all. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, I don't know a thing about sports. I don't know about trans women in sport.
Mm-mm.
I am 100% pro trans people, and whatever they want to do is fine with me. I don't care. Um, but even if I were, like, it's the J.K. Rowling thing of I am sitting on a mountain of money, worried that there's a trans lady in a bathroom in a Target somewhere that I don't approve of. And I'm going to froth about that all day. I'm going to write books about it. I'm going to tweet about it. I'm going to join clubs. I mean, it are like, has a trans person, and not that this would be an excuse, but like, has a this is, we've sort of changed topics a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
has a trans person ever done anything to J.K. Rowling? Has has like, did Lizzo chase you and attack you with this
I
flute?
mean,
I mean,
yeah,
like, what?
Lizzo specifically, or some other classically trained black woman of size. Like,
Right.
did someone break your flute when you were a kid and now you have like flute related traumas, or you left yours on the bus and you got yelled at?
Yeah. It's
I,
fascinating.
it really is because, and this is now after we're talking about like in a healthy society, people would think this was really cool. I'm going to sound really, because you know how we like to sound smug on this program.
Sure.
When I saw it, I did think, cool.
Yeah.
And then I have to admit, I did think people are going to be pretty mad about this. And
Yeah.
then indeed, people were pretty mad about it. Or maybe I already knew they were. I can't remember the way that the timing lined up. Maybe I saw like people furious at Lizzo, and I was like, oh boy, why? Oh, she played a flute. I'll go watch.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know either.
I don't know either. Roz, people are at it in my neighborhood again. And I know you love to hear these stories about my neighborhood. So
Yeah, I do.
last week, two weird things happened. A man tried to let himself into my house, a stranger that I don't know, one that I hadn't invited over, and someone tried to go through my car.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear. So the by trying to let yourself, I mean, the way you're phrasing that makes it sound like this was an accident and not a breaking and entering, or
I have no idea.
okay.
So I've got a security camera up on the front porch,
Sure.
and I had my phone on silent because I was just getting up when this happened, so I didn't hear the notification. Turned my phone on, saw there was footage from my front porch. It was a man who walked up. He had he had his right hand in his pocket, and he had nothing in his left hand.
Okay.
He reached out his right hand, turned the doorknob, pulled. The door didn't open because the screen door was locked,
Yeah.
and then he walked away.
Hmm.
And I've seen people do the thing where they come up, they ring the doorbell, then they try the screen so that they can knock on the bigger interior door,
Yeah.
and they learn that the screen is locked. So then they knock on the screen. Then I, watching from my camera, watch them walk away because I'm not coming to the door.
Right.
But he didn't leave anything. He didn't have a package. He didn't have a clipboard. He didn't have a pamphlet.
Hmm.
It looked for all the world like he was going around trying to doorknobs and just seeing if he could walk in anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a little scary.
It was a little scary. And then I noticed when I got up a couple days later that my garage gate was open.
Yeah.
And I religiously closed the garage gate. So that one I knew exactly what it meant. I was like, hope I locked my car because people have been in my yard. And luckily I had locked my car, and apparently nobody wanted my folding chairs or my umbrella so much that they smashed a window.
Hmm.
But I went on, the neighborhood sites that I'm on social media, and people were talking about my street and a couple streets right around here,
Hmm.
the rash of break-ins. I was like, so it's got me a little bit on edge.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I mean, are they break-ins or is it people like trying to see if cars are open? I mean, not that that's a lot better,
Yeah,
but
the cars, I didn't see anybody post that windows were smashed.
okay.
And like I said, mine weren't because maybe there was nothing in there. So I don't know if window smashing was taking place, but definitely unlocked cars were being rifled through and stuff thrown all over the street and all that stuff.
Yeah, which is not good. I mean,
It's
at
not
least
good.
like better if you can lock your door and that it's good. I mean, I certainly don't victim shame or support people going through unlocked cars, but also if I lived, well, even where I live here in the suburbs, I would still not leave my car unlocked.
I know. And the
So I'm
one
not
time I
saying that's,
did, my car
bad,
got
but
gone through.
right.
And they,
Not saying that's fair.
I
I'm not
mean, I
saying that's
guess
reasonable.
luckily for me, like they didn't, because from what I heard, the people the other night who were doing it were
Hmm.
just ripping out everything from every glove box and throwing things all over the place.
Ugh,
And at least when they went through my car, they just kind of moved a couple things and put them on the passenger seat,
that's
and then
awful.
stole my flashlight and left.
Yeah, the one time my car they broke in the little like side light window, and then they took some change, which was like it was like $40 to replace. I was sort of like I wasn't even that mad about it. I was like, okay, well, if you were gonna break into my car, I'm glad you didn't like smash my windshield or something. Like I was sort of like, part of me was like, oh, that was really thoughtful that they just broke that little cheap to replace window.
I know. It's funny though, because I start wondering about what the thieves are looking for. Because
Mm,
someone posted on social media that there are a whole bunch of bags tossed on a nearby cross street
yeah.
that the person assumed were things that were taken out of people's vehicles during the robberies. And I just wonder what people think when they steal, for example, a thing that looks like a gym bag.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes people leave their wallets in a gym bag. Sometimes people leave wallets in cars. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there might just be some maliciousness to it with it too of, I try to when people steal things like change and loose money and stuff like that that's, unattended whatever. I'm not defending that, but I try to tell myself that this is a person in dire need. Um but I think sometimes there's also just maliciousness of we're just out for trouble or whatever, and we're going through cars and we're trashing
Yeah.
cars, and if we get something, we get something, and if not, we'll just raise a little heck and
I think that in this instance, that has to be much more of it.
mhm.
Because from what I saw was thrown out, it really was lots of bags, stuff that looked like a lot of gym bags, which I can see that. I don't leave a lot in my car, but if I went out to a gym, I'd probably leave my clothes in the car sometimes just because going back to the gym tomorrow.
Yeah. And I guess
But
like
yeah,
I guess if you were looking for stuff in cars, it's probably a little safer to take the stuff out of the car. And so maybe it's just grabbing the stuff out of the car and then going through it outside of the car because you're probably a little it's probably a little easier to get away, a little easier plausible deniability if you're going through stuff on the street than if you're like
hmm,
caught red-handed in a car where you can't
right.
necessarily get away very fast, and
Uh,
you're definitely doing something you shouldn't be doing, as opposed to like I'm
and I
going through
do
a bag on the
wonder,
street
like,
that may or may not be yours.
both with the people who were robbing the cars and the fellow who tried to walk in my house, what if that fellow had been able to get in my house? What did he think he would do? Like, what was the plan?
Well, yeah,
And
that's the scary question.
like, then that just seems like a good way to really possibly get yourself killed.
Well, true,
Because
true.
once someone walks into the house, and I think I've said, I'm not sure if I've said on this program, because I like social media and I like my neighborhood pages sometimes. People will post really just kind of matter of fact accounts of, oh, my spouse and I were sitting on the couch watching TV the other night when a man walked into our living room. The dog ran and started barking, and the man ran away.
Yeah,
But you never know what you're going to find when you walk into someone's house.
right.
And that seems like maybe you could find some trouble.
Well, and I wonder too. I'm sure there are instances of people sort of casing houses. I bet it's a blend of things. I bet there are people who are, you know, checking to see if people keep their doors unlocked. I bet there are people who, um, you know, truly, there are a lot, I think there are a lot of instances of people with substance abuse issues or mental illness who genuinely don't know where they are. And I think that happens as well.
I've heard
Um,
a lot of those anecdotes as well. Like, I came down to make coffee in the morning, there was a man asleep on my couch.
mhm.
But then there's usually follow up with, they'll keep posting, like, he said he was drunk and he got confused. There wasn't anything stolen. I guess I'm glad he got a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Because that does, if you leave your doors open. And that to me, it's worrisome for everybody because I know I would be freaked out
Mhm.
if I came downstairs and there was a stranger sleeping on my couch. But from what I understand, the person sleeping on my couch would be equally as freaked out.
Yeah. Well, and you don't know. I mean, part of the problem is you don't know who's who till it's too late.
Right.
I mean, you don't know is to say, and honestly, as much as it's lovely if someone gets a good warm night's sleep, you sort of don't want either scenario in your house, especially unexpected.
I
So,
certainly don't.
yeah.
No, I mean, that's why I've had people, well, throughout my life, I've had people either tease me about how much I like to lock doors or for some reason get agitated with me about how much I like to lock doors, which the agitated it never made sense to me. Like, I like to have the doors locked. Please keep them locked.
I don't understand. I don't know who doesn't lock door. I mean, I always grew up with like you lock the door. This is a very important thing. You lock the door. You lock the door. It's just and it was just always drilled into me and I don't feel like it's an unreasonable thing. I know there I guess there are still places where people feel comfortable not locking their doors and that is great and that's fine and I'm glad that you live in such a place. And I guess there's a you know, uh, you should be able to leave your door unlocked, but to me it's
Oh, you
just like
should.
to me it's just one less thing to worry about. I mean, to me it's just an extra precaution that takes me no time that gives me like that much less to worry about.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. This year, I've been in a couple different places where people don't have to lock their doors or choose not to.
Hmm.
It makes me uneasy.
Yeah, and I don't know that even makes me. It's not something I'm ever going to do at my house or with my car,
Yeah.
unless it's like very weird accidental.
Well, I think I've learned my lesson with my car after last year. But I don't know. That's news from my neighborhood.
I love it,
A little disconcerting. Just, hmm.
Heather.
Ross.
Sure. Do we have a? Oh, we don't have a. We don't have our now who died music, do we?
Oh, no, we don't.
Oh man. I don't know what it would be. I'm sure there's something. I'm sure we can find something. But anyway, so
Guess who died now?
I love it.
How's that?
That was pretty great.
We can put that
So
with some punchy horns.
so uh Heather, my maybe my favorite author died, maybe like living.
Oh,
I have maybe favorite or dead authors, but
oh,
yeah, Hilary Mantel died, and that makes me sad.
I'm
Sort of,
so sorry.
I say unexpected. It was unexpected to me. I don't know if people um, knew that she was ill, but she was great, and people should read her a lot, and did. She was cool. So she was cool. She was a writer for a long time, and I also think she's an example of, aside from other things, which I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but so she was somebody who sort of became famous and a bestseller like later in life. I think like for like post 50 at least, and she had been a writer for some time, and I think I think she also makes a good case for, we see with like, especially with Amazon and just the contraction of publishing, where it's sort of like movies, like everything's gotten very like uh buzzy bestseller focused,
Okay.
and there's not as much room for stuff on the margins.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's a good example of why that's bad, because she was someone who wrote like brilliant books for a long time, but that didn't really nobody really read. And then she wrote Wolf Hall, which was her big, I mean, huge bestseller, and then was sort of a bestseller for the rest of her life, which was 10 or 15 years. And she so Hilary Mantel, for people who don't know, she wrote a lot of the stuff she's most famous for is a lot of historical fiction. So she wrote one of her earlier books was about the set during the French Revolution, called A Place of Greater Safety, and then Wolf Hall, Bring Up the Bodies, and The Mirror and the Light was her trilogy. It was made into a TV series. It was big, and there's just, I think there's nobody who did it better in two ways. I mean, in the historical fiction thing, but then also just as a, we've talked about the sort of YA-ification of
Mm-hmm.
books, which is all fine. And again, I'll do the the preface that I always do with that: read what you want. It's fine. I don't care. I'm supportive. Read what you like. Um, but I think the market has become so focused on that, like even adult books,
Mm-hmm.
there does not seem to be as much of a market, or publishers aren't interested in publishing like literary fiction with a, things that works and writers that really know how to get you with language, who aren't afraid of being maybe a little dense,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little complex, but really know how to hit you with language, as opposed to, just so much of what is popular and what sells now. And again, I read all kinds of stuff, so this is this is not in itself a bad thing, but like it's very sort of workmanlike. you know, we're going to keep the language as simple as possible and hopefully tell a good story with that language, and that's fine when you can do that. Again, that's great. I have no issue with that, but it's nice that there are still a few writers, and now there's one less, where, like I said, as a pro stylist, I just don't think there was anybody better. I mean, I think her books they were dense, and they were sort of emotional and time commitments, but really rewarding. And I just, and as a writer of historical fiction, I mean, she wasn't a historian, but I've heard from, you know, reading these books, I'm enough of a history nerd to know like kind of where things should be. And like the Wolf Hall trilogy is all set during um the Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn, that sort of era. You feel more than any other more than any other historical fiction I've ever read, like you feel like you are in that time and place. I mean, you feel like you're thinking, I mean, they're written in the present tense, and you feel like you're thinking, and that sense of the past being a slightly alien world. Like you feel like it's captured. And I don't know, obviously the people are, anyone who could tell us has been dead for a very long time, so that's hard to quantify. But I've heard historians say the same thing. Like there is a sense that there is very much the sense that you feel like you are in this time and place with these people living and breathing and think. I mean, there is there is a the main character of this Wolf Hall trilogy gets decapitated at the end, which is sort of, I don't think that's much of a spoiler, you know.
Spoilers.
But like,
My goodness.
and she writes that decapitation from his point of view, and it is like, it is harrowing. I mean, it is like you feel like you are getting your head chopped off, and that's not that's
Ooh, now I'm rethinking. I wrote this down and I was gonna pick up a copy, but now I worry it's gonna be too scary for me.
I think if you can get through, to the, if you can make it to the last, two paragraphs of the last book, I guess you could skip those if you wanted. I guess if you, I guess if you picked up the trilogy and skipped the last like two or three paragraphs of the last book, and I could
That's
just
how I
tell you
usually
like,
read
yeah,
trilogies.
because it's sort of, you could just go to the Wikipedia entry for the real person and find out what happened if you needed to like, um, so yeah, no, I'm set. And again, I didn't know that she was sick. Um, so it was sort of a surprise. I don't know if people did, but I love her. And she had essays too. She was a really interesting thinker. She had a very, she had a very, she was a very clear thinker. She was a very, she could put her finger on topics, because she wrote essays for some publications and things like that on different topics, and they were all of them. I have a couple collections of books, and they were all just like, it's just interesting. Like everything she had to say was interesting to me. And now now she's not, so I have to read her books that I haven't read yet, which there are still several, so that's fine. But
Well, I'm so sorry. I'm glad there are still several, so that they'll be new to you at least.
yeah, yeah,
But still, I'm so sorry.
yeah, Hilary Mantel, she's pretty great.
Aw. I was wondering if you would want to talk about some gay stuff.
I don't allow that kind of talk in my house, so I don't think so.
I feel like you do.
No,
So
absolutely not.
I
I'm
don't
saying
even
no. I don't
know.
know why I'm. I don't know. I don't know why you're still
No,
going, but here we are.
well, because I'm not even sure like what my thoughts really are on this. Besides, I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
Um, that movie Bros just dropped, and according to NPR, the synopsis is, it's not synopsis, but one of the big things about it is it's the first gay romantic comedy with a mostly LGBTQ cast to be given wide release by a major studio,
Yep, that is true.
which I think is pretty neat. And this NPR article, unfortunately, I misread the headline and at first saw what I wanted to see, which made me think it went over great and was like vastly attended. The headline is actually Billy Eichner, who's the director of it, said straight people just didn't show up for Bros at the box office, which is disappointing to me because even when we were at Moon Age Daydream last weekend, we saw the trailer for it and I was like, that looks good.
Yeah.
I'd watch that. I've seen commercials for that. Um, but along those lines as well, not too long ago, you and I were at a party together, and I said I'd been watching that Uncoupled show
Hmm.
featuring Neil Patrick Harris. And that was another show that, as far as I understood, was a pretty LGBTQ cast. And the main storyline revolved around a gay couple. And I'm bummed that straight people didn't show up for Bros at the box office, but I'm also excited that there are just these programs on main, like on Netflix. There's just a new Netflix show that centers around a gay couple.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, in Bros, it's more about, like, sure, they're gay or whatever, but it's about the characters and their relationship with each other and how every relationship is unique and distinct and stuff. I feel like we might be going in a good direction, maybe.
I don't know. I don't know if we are or not. I think it's sort of, I hate to say it, and I wanted to see Bros this weekend, but I didn't have a chance because we had other plans. So I apologize to the gay community, to Billy Eichner, to all my gay ancestors for not contributing to that. But we will get around to it soon, I promise.
When you go, if I'm free, if you
Okay,
want someone to tag along with you.
very good.
Because the
Um,
commercials in the trailer did look really funny.
yeah, and it's got good reviews. I don't know. It's sort of, so I hate to say it doesn't surprise me that it didn't do well, but the you know the modern current box office is so focused on, and I say the box office, but in terms of what people are going to see as well, it is four quadrant, very expensive blockbusters that will sell in multiple countries, which is why everything's like a sort of slightly bland action movie. So I don't know. As far as TV, I think yes, there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and I think there's a lot of progress in terms of TV. In terms of movies, I think it sort of doesn't surprise me terribly that this didn't do well, regardless of how good it is. And I think it's now going to be used as an example of why we can't do more gay movies. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a positive at all. I mean, it
Okay.
doesn't hurt, but it well, it might hurt. And I'm not blaming that on the movie. I just, I it's we're in such a weird place right now, and I I don't know. I don't know what that progress looks like. I think there's been such a retraction on gay stuff. I think there was a lot of progress, and I think there's suddenly becoming a lot less. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and then that Uncoupled show, you had the very legitimate observation about it that is kind of unrelatable. Because
Yeah,
whoever decided to create the show made everybody like super wealthy.
yeah, and I mean there are a lot of straight shows like that. I mean part of the problem is, I guess that's always the problem with representation, where like when you don't have enough of it, then everything has to be everything to everybody. You know what I mean? So like
That always takes me out of it with straight shows too. When somehow, but I mean, at least in
literally
Uncoupled,
every straight show is about rich people. I mean, like, name me a straight show that's not about rich people.
well, I'm almost done with Heartbreak High, an
Okay.
Australian teen kind of mini like 8 episode arc.
Okay.
And
A show that other people have seen besides me.
oh, what else? Um, Riverdale. Riverdale just ended
Riverdale's about rich people.
to an extent, but like Archie isn't that rich. Veronica's not that rich.
They're not rich.
Veronica's very
They're
rich.
not rich compared to
Betty's
TV
not
people.
rich.
They're they're not rich compared to TV people. They live in like $500,000 houses easily.
Well,
And then they go, "Oh,
Archie,
we're
no
poor."
way.
Yeah.
Jughead, he was living in the movie theater for goodness sake. He didn't even have home.
Okay, fine. Jughead on Riverdale was not rich.
But I'm thinking about like Veronica, she lived in those mansions because her dad was like a bad criminal,
Right.
and that's why he had so much money. Um but I'm thinking of shows I haven't seen but I've heard about, like Friends. I've been lucky to not see an episode of Friends at any point in my life, and now it's kind of one of those things where I dig my heels in.
Oh,
And
that
if
is such a
Friends is on the airplane, I'm not going to watch Friends.
that is such a hot take about Friends.
Is it?
I've never heard that before.
You haven't?
I've
You
never heard
have.
somebody go, "Oh, I'm too good to watch Friends." I've never heard that before. Wow, that's amazing.
No, back in the day,
That's
everybody
interesting.
would tell me I was supposed to.
You should tweet that.
But that was one.
That was
I don't
literally 30
tweet.
years ago, but okay.
I don't tweet. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Yeah, definitely. But their jobs never explained why they could live in such a big place. And at least in Uncoupled, they did have like high powered jobs that explained, like, oh, that's why you can live in a place like this in New York.
They do. And I don't mind, like, I don't care if people on TV are rich, because like I said, literally everyone on TV is rich. Even the poor people are rich. I mean, like, even poor people on TV live in unaffordable like places that most like homes that most people can't afford. Like if you have a 5 bedroom, 3 bedroom home and they're like in in nice condition, a 5 bedroom colonial, and everybody's like, oh, we're the poor people in town. It's always like that. But and you're like, okay, that house would cost $600,000 easily in my cheap neighborhood. But so that doesn't bother. But again, if you so with Uncoupled, I it was more just like the characters that I couldn't relate to. But like I said, that's sort of the problem when there's not enough of anything, because then
Yeah,
every
because those are
then
the only characters.
right, then you can have, like it's like back in the day, all gay people were mentally ill serial killers. That was literally like the only time you'd see gay people on TV.
So this is progress that now they're kind of like whiny and not dealing well with a breakup.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's fine. Like, it's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with a mentally ill serial killer gay person. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But when that's all it is,
Well, that's
it's
the
like,
thing. That's the
this
only
is a
one there
problem.
is.
This is a problem, So, like, and yes, most of us are mentally ill serial killers, but not
Well, you are, but that doesn't mean every gay person is, Ross.
right. I mean, it's like 60%, but that leaves a whole 40% of people who are not mentally ill serial killers who are also queer who want to be represented. So, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I know plenty of queer people who are not mentally ill serial killers. I don't hold it against you that you are.
They don't talk
Like,
about
you're
it.
my friend.
They don't talk about it with straight people, so I don't know that you know that for sure, but that's
Well,
fine.
maybe they're lying. That's true. Maybe my friends are liars.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to talk about it with a straight girl, but
Woman.
get on gay Twitter.
A woman.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot we were sensitive about.
Woman.
Sorry, forgot we were sensitive about that. Shall I call you ma'am?
Yeah.
Do you want me to?
People do.
All
People
right.
do.
Yeah. So the takeaway there is, I don't know. Bros sounds good. I want to see it. I also want to see The Woman King, which I didn't get to see either. So I'm not supporting lots of things that I want to not just see, but also support. And I have not had time to go to the movies yet. But I don't know. I don't know if things are good or bad. I feel like movies and TV are both very weird because with streaming, like all these streaming services are sort of collapsing on themselves now. So there
Yes.
are things like The Sandman on Netflix, which was the biggest show, like their number one show by far. Everybody watched The Sandman. It had huge ratings, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, we don't know if we can renew it for a second season because it's expensive and we don't know. So there's all sorts of, I mean, they're like just shows getting canceled left and right because all these streaming services were throwing so much money at things that they don't have all of a sudden. And then again, with movies, everything's got to be Marvel or Star Wars or people won't go to see it. So I don't know, like they're, I can't coming from where our generation, I can't complain about the number of entertainment options that we have as opposed to like, oh, okay, I can watch, a new episode of Cheers, or I can watch a rerun of Gilligan's Island, and those are the only things that are on right now. But so,
But
like,
maybe Love Boat will be on later.
right, right. But I don't know. It's a weird market, and I don't know how that is going to play out in terms of. And then you add the complication of like, black representation,
Hmm.
black character representation, queer representation. Once you start throwing that into the mix, I don't know how any of this is going to play out. And the fact that people are suddenly antagonistic to queer content in a way that they haven't been as much in a while, I don't know. So I think it's gonna be bad before it gets good again. I
That's
think
a
it's gonna get worse before it
shame.
gets better.
Because I have made myself my little bubble of content with like good diversity and representation because that's what I want to see and it is out there. Like
Mhm.
even I'm not sure what I make of this Heartbreak High program. It was only 8 episodes, so it was definitely worth my time. But one thing I really, really did appreciate was the diversity amongst people of color and amongst queer people. Once again, it was not good on size representation. There's
Yeah,
not been a lot of progress at all made there, even on our beloved CW shows, even on this Australian show. But I did find that very interesting, and especially in the context of a high school, because of course, that's what the Australian show, that's where it's set. Um, and of course, like the kids, when you have a high school show, there's got to be like some bullying, there's got to be some jerkiness and stuff. And it's so interesting to me the way it's handled because it's not anything about anybody's queerness or anybody's color. They find other things to pick on each other for.
Yeah.
And I like that. I feel like that is quite likely not what's happening in actual high schools, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But then it makes me wonder for a program like that, what's the demographic? And is that actually somehow for some kid out there modeling this kind of behavior?
Yeah, and I think, I think entertainment can do a couple things depending on what it is. I think you can model good behavior. You can reflect things as they really are. You can, model gay serial killer,
Right.
you know,
That was the movie you were in.
just to give me ideas.
Oh, the
So
documentary you were in. I'm sorry.
yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
not the movie, the documentary. I know that
Absolutely.
you're sensitive about that.
But I think it's good to see, I think it's okay if sometimes stuff like that, especially something that's geared at maybe high schoolers is, maybe giving people ideas about slightly better ways to be. I think that's all right. I don't have a
Yeah,
problem with that.
it's something I think about with certain kinds of content I like to watch. I'm like, I like the way these people are speaking to each other for the most part, or even if there is some kind of conflict or drama, it's played in a way that I often like.
Yeah.
Like that was a great way to resolve that contact conflict going on. But also, I am who I am. I'm liberal weenie over here, and so then I do try to kind of back up and go, what do other people see when they watch this show?
You know what I like, Heather?
What do you like, Ross?
I like getting the heck out of here.
You do.
I do. I do.
You know what the space cadets like?
They also like getting the heck out of here, I think.
They do. And what they like best is sticking around for more amazing content right here on WAYO LP Rochester because there's good stuff after us.
I can't wait.
Thank goodness. Clean your ears. Not literally, metaphorically, just of our voices. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next week.
I lost your thing again. Hold on. There it is. It's a slippery slope, Heather. First, Lizzo plays President James Madison's crystal flute. Next thing you know, they're giving her John Quincy Adams' tinfoil balalaika.
I'll tinfoil balalaika you.
All are gonna tremble when Lizzo plays Franklin Pierce's felted wool sousaphone.
I'll felted wool sousaphone you.
William McKinley's porcelain contra guitar.
I'll porcelain contra guitar you.
Lizzo's gonna play Martin Van Buren's Formica Hammond organ. Nothing to that.
Nah, I'm out.
You done?
You
I
done?
think I'm done too.
Are you done?
I think it's enough. Don't you think?
I think everybody thinks it's enough.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Bye, everybody. Go home.